Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Rachel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about our birth story and how everything went down. So grab your snacks and buckle up because it's going to be a long one. Also, don't mind my dog right here, Callie. My baby is right next to me. She's taking a nap, so gotta do what you can. So first I want to start off by saying this quick disclaimer. This is just my story and my experience, and I do not want to discourage anyone from how things went down and what happened. I still think that, you know, everything happened within God's timing and God's will and how he wanted it to go, and that's exactly what I prayed for throughout my whole pregnancy, that, you know, our birth would glorify him and help me experience him in a new way, which I feel like I definitely did. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so let's go all the way back to the beginning. I had a wonderful pregnancy. I literally had no symptoms at all. Literally could have gone as perfect pregnancy as I could ever imagine. And then coming to the birth story, it was a completely different story. So throughout my whole pregnancy, I was preparing myself mentally, physically, spiritually, in all ways to have a natural birth. I was planning on having a natural birth at the hospital. I know you can do it at home, but I just wanted the security of, if anything did go wrong, having a hospital staff there and doctors, whereas having it at home, you know, you still have to travel if something did go wrong. So I was preparing myself for that, did all the stretches, drank all the teas, all the vitamins, everything, anything and everything that I could do, I did it. I thought the baby was gonna be due earlier, for some reason, just because I feel like I prepared my body so much for it that I was expecting her to come, which wasn't the case. So it was around 39 weeks and I had absolutely no symptoms of our baby girl coming. So we just go to the hospital for our routine checkup, and our doctor pretty much schedules me for an appointment on my due date. And she says, you know, just pack your bags, take your things, and come in on your due date just to make sure that you're good. And if you are good, we'll just send you home and we'll just wait for you to come to labor naturally. So I was like, okay, cool, sounds good. We went home that day, had our bags packed, did everything that we did. The following week is my due date week. So we put all of our bags in the car and our due date comes, and I wake up super normal, have a good breakfast. We didn't have a good breakfast because I was going into the appointment thinking, oh, like this is gonna be super quick, and then after this we're gonna go have like a little breakfast date, because my husband and I like love doing that. So I think we didn't even have coffee that day or nothing like that. So we just went into the appointment. We get there and they do, like, you know, your regular checkups, you take your blood pressure, put, like, you know, just monitor you, make sure you're doing good, like take all your vitals. And then they request that I do an ultrasound just to make sure that the baby was doing well, that there was enough, you know, kicks and movements, which they ask you this all the time, and it's like super important for you to monitor your baby's movement, especially towards the end of your pregnancy, which I was, and she was moving. She was pretty active. She was pretty active throughout the whole pregnancy. So they do the ultrasound, and in the ultrasound We're there for about 10 minutes. And if you've never gotten a pregnancy ultrasound, you pretty much like don't know anything, because the technician, I don't think they're like really allowed to like tell you anything abnormal without a doctor being present. But usually like the ultrasounds are like pretty quiet. They just like check for all the baby's limbs, their vitals, make sure that they're doing good. And then, you know, towards like the end of the ultrasound, which is usually like 10 minutes or so, they, you know, show you the baby, they talk to you about the baby, and then that's it. You're good to go. But this ultrasound was different. So I was just like laying there, and she was like doing the ultrasound, and it had been like 10 minutes at this point, and she just kept saying like, she's like stubborn, which wasn't alarming because on all the ultrasounds we went to, she was very stubborn. Like she didn't want to, you know, face the ultrasound or like move, or she would be like, you know, in different positions where it would make it harder on the technician. So it wasn't like alarming to us that she kept saying like, oh, she's like stubborn, she doesn't want to move. So we were just like, okay, cool, like nothing new, like it was kind of normal to us. But then there was a shift. It turned from 10 minutes to 15 minutes, and by the time I know it, I was in there for like 30 minutes, and she was still doing the ultrasound. And at this point she was saying things like, oh, she doesn't have like a lot of fetal movement. Like she tried putting me in every different position, she tried using like different machines, and nothing was really changing, which at this point I started to get anxious, because I'm like, what does this mean? And 5 minutes later she came back and she was like, hey, we're gonna have to admit you into the hospital, and you're gonna have to stay because you have 0 amniotic fluid. That was a complete shock to me. At this point, they're asking me if my water broke or anything like that. From what I experienced and from what I understand, those things did not happen to me. How they explain how your water breaks and how if it did break, you would have trickling fluid the following days after that. None of that happened to me. So I was just very confused and at this point very anxious. And just knew that the baby was coming. Like pretty much I had to get admitted. And shout out to our doctor for telling us to pack a bag just in case. That was words of wisdom because we had everything we needed with us. So pretty much I get admitted to the hospital and they pretty much tell me like, hey, we're gonna have this baby. Now, they told me it was going to take maybe 1 to 2 days for me to have the baby because the process of induction, they wanted to do it, you know, slowly. They didn't want to amp me up on drugs and get it going. Like they wanted to do it slowly and methodical, which I was completely fine with, being that I didn't want to get induced in the first place. So I get admitted. They start monitoring the baby like with the belly band at the hospital, and I'm there, I would say, for maybe half an hour to an hour, and they're just monitoring the baby, and things seem to be going pretty well. I have like a few doctors coming in and like asking me again like the same questions, like did your water break, trying to figure out why there was no amniotic fluid in my belly, even though I was like feeling the kicks and everything, like she was doing well. So an hour passes by. They started the induction, which is like, there's like different methods. The one they did for me was they insert something into your vagina and pretty much it starts like dilating and it starts getting your cervix like soft in order for you to start dilating and eventually have the baby. So at this point it's just a waiting game and I'm just waiting there, and my actual OB comes in because she wasn't working at the hospital that day. She was scheduled to work the next day, but she still generously came in and checked on me, just to make sure like I was okay. And she also too was concerned or confused as to what was going on. So pretty much she just explains the whole process to me of induction and how it's gonna go. And she says, okay, I'll see you tomorrow, because again, it was supposed to be a slow induction process, and I was planning on having my baby delivered by her. So she leaves, and not even 10 minutes later, my nurse comes in, and she's like training me into different positions, and moving like the belly band monitoring for the baby. And at this point, I'm starting to feel weird, because I'm like, why does she keep coming in and shifting, the bands? And two, like, why am I being turned in all these different positions? Like, she should be able to monitor the baby and see the baby perfectly with just me sitting here. So this whole time, they're obviously just talking to me calmly. They're not really like letting me know, because they don't want to like scare me into anything. But I knew something was off. So as soon as she comes in, and she's in there for about 5 minutes, a whole team of doctors and nurses rush into my room, you guys, and they start prepping me. They start putting IVs in me. They start, checking on different stuff. And at this point, like, the energy in the room shifted, and I knew something was wrong. Pretty much at this point, sorry guys, this is kind of like hard for me to talk about. I feel like it's gonna be a journey for me to like process this. But at this point in my mind, I already knew it was a C-section, and I remember turning to my husband and telling him like, it's gonna be a C-section. And it all happened so quickly, like literally within a matter of minutes. Like all that I'm saying, it was like condensed within like less than 5 minutes. And he just looks at me, and he's just like, okay, like, obviously we have our plans and the ways that we want it, but above all else, we want God's will. And if this was, his will, then let it be done. And I was okay with not having to do it naturally, as long as the baby was okay, I was okay, and like, this is what God wanted. So all those nurses and doctors are in a room, and pretty much they look at me and they're like, hey mama, like, we're preparing you, you're gonna be a C-section. Your baby's like heart rate keeps dropping, and we can't like sense her movements. And I was like, okay. And the anesthesiologist was literally right like to my like ear, and she was like, hey, we have time, we're gonna do an epidural, which is like, a needle through your back, which like numbs like the lower half of your body. And she says that, looks at the monitor, and goes, hey, where's Dr. One second, guys. So yeah, she looks at the doctor immediately, looks at like the staff team, and she goes, hey, where's Dr. So-and-so? And they're like, oh, like, she's on her way, like, she's not here yet. And she looks at me and she goes, like, they hand over the clothes to my husband to like, for him to be in like the surgical room, the operating room. And they pretty much, the anesthesiologist looks at me and she goes, you're gonna have to be general anesthesia, like, we're gonna have to go. And they literally start rolling me out. If you guys have seen Grey's Anatomy, I felt like I was in an episode of Grey's Anatomy. Like, I'm talking about like more than 20 doctors and nurses like around me, and they're literally telling me like, hey, like, we're gonna have to go right now. They like look at my husband and they're like, sorry, like, you can't come. And at that point, you guys, I felt like my world shattered, and I wanted to obviously like go into like crying and all the things, and I didn't. I held myself together because I knew like I had to, keep myself calm in this situation and not, mess up the baby and make things worse. And I feel like in that moment was a moment of, so as I was saying, in that moment, you guys, I experienced God's presence and him keeping me like no other before. Like when I say that was an answered prayer, God really did allow me to experience him in a different way, because that is all I had to hold on to. Like all I had was him. Like I was surrounded by a whole bunch of nurses and doctors, like ultimately strangers that I didn't know, and I had to put my baby's, life in their hands and my life in their hands. And yeah, and all I had was God. All I had was, Jesus to cling on to and say, Lord, like, if this is your will, let it be done. Like, I just don't even have words for that moment. Like, he kept me in a miraculous way, truly. And I am just so glad that, he was able to allow me to experience him in that way, and that he was able to keep us and protect us and ultimately give me a healthy baby girl and allow us to be joined as a family once again. But I had to put all my trust on him, and it was a very vulnerable and dependent moment on him, and he taught me a lot through that process, and that we have to depend on him, like obviously I have my husband and my spouse, and I depend on him a lot, and I look up to him a lot, but we have a savior, Jesus Christ, and he is who we should depend on ultimately for everything and anything, and he is our ultimate leader and keeper of all things. So that moment was very impactful for me in my life, and it's just a testimony of like God's goodness and how much he cares for us and how detail oriented he is, and just how he works all things for his good and for his glory, and how it impacts more than just us. So yeah, in that moment, within those seconds, all I remember was just literally being ran down the halls of the hospital, and just, me like shutting my eyes and quietly like praying for those, what felt like 5 seconds of running down the hall and saying, Lord, keep me, like protect my baby. So we rush into the OR, all these bright lights are on me, and within a matter of like seconds, all I hear from the anesthesiologist is like, hey, we're transferring you over. I'm gonna put this mask on you. It's gonna feel uncomfortable. It might feel like you can't breathe, and then you're gonna have your baby girl. And I was like, okay. And as soon as I said that, she put the mask on me, and I felt just that. I felt like I couldn't breathe. It was a very surreal experience. Felt like I was like, Lord, am I gonna come see you? It was a very surreal experience. I've never had surgery before. I've never been under general anesthesia or any anesthesia before, so it was definitely a very vulnerable and new experience. But it was just that I woke up an hour later, and I was in complete shivering. My whole body was shivering. I was so cold. Now I know that it was like from the anesthesia. I was in a lot of pain, just everywhere, my abdomen, my whole body, it just, everything hurt really bad. I remember being like conscious, but like not conscious at the same time. Immediately having a whole bunch of nurses and doctors check up on me, which some of them were very painful because they're like pressing down on your stomach and doing all sorts of things literally within minutes of you opening your eyes. Very uncomfortable. And I wasn't able to see my baby girl. Unfortunately, I did not witness her being born, but I know God was there, and God was a witness, and God kept her and protected her. And put her in the hands of amazing doctors and nurses that watched over her and protected her. And yeah, I mean, I was, obviously fortunate enough to have my husband and my mom be there, and they were able to go and see the baby afterwards, um, and just be with her and obviously be with me. I think the hardest part for me to digest was myself, and more than myself, my husband not being able to witness the birth of our baby girl. And I know in the grand scheme of things, we're home, we're healthy, and we're here, and we get to have the rest of our lives to witness her grow. But I think that's a moment that will forever be in my heart as a sad area, because I really wanted him to witness her being born, and I know he really wanted that as well. And of course, I wanted to witness her, right? So yeah, I think that is something that I am finding healing in, and that I'm surrendering to the Lord for, and that I am praying, about, and I know that He has, His will and the reason why He did things the way that they happened. So I'm just grateful that she's healthy and sound, that I'm healthy and sound, and that we're able to be together as a family. But that was how our birth went down, completely unexpected. Man, I mean, it just took me like on a journey. It like shook me. It was hard for me to digest it and reflect on it the weeks after. We're now 2 months postpartum, and I feel like this is something that I'm still processing. Obviously not as intense as it was those first weeks, right? But it did take me time. And that's why I'm here making this video, because I hope this informs you, encourages you, and show you that God is in the midst of it all. He works all things, for His good and glory, and it is all worth it. Like, it is all worth it. Once you see your baby, and you just, it opens up your eyes in a different way, right? And I feel like it's shown me in such a deeper way how God sees us, right? Like, as His sons and daughters. Like, man, that love and that protection is just so different. When they say, like, you see the world through a different lens, you truly do. Your perspective really does shift, and the way that you see your baby and show up for them, and it's just a completely different outlook on life. And man, it just makes you appreciate so much your parents and what they did for you. And I just want to shout out my husband and my mom for being there and helping me through this whole journey and through this whole process. I'm forever grateful to them and the way that they showed up for me. And just my mom, man, she really was my rock through this journey, and I felt like a little girl, and it was kind of healing in some ways, her showing up for me while I have my own baby girl to take care of, and she was taking care of me. And it was just such a crazy journey and experience, but at the same time there was so much love and intentionality in everything that happened. And honestly, I do not know how I would be able to do this without our Lord. Like, truly, I don't know. Like, He truly was what kept me throughout this whole experience. But that was it for our birth story. I'm sure I'm gonna look back on this and I'm going to miss out on so many details that happened, because like I said, it was so much, you guys. There was a lot that happened, and things that you just forget over time. But I just want this to, you know, heal some people, let you know, like, you know, if you've been through this, like, you're not alone. Um, and yeah, I mean, that was our birth story. Not what I expected, but definitely grateful for how it turned out in the end. We are 2 months postpartum. That was our birth story. This has been the biggest joy of my life, and I wouldn't change it or trade it for the world. And I am so happy and blessed that I get to be this baby girl's mom, and I get to witness her grow up and see the amazing woman of God that she is going to be. And yeah, I hope this story blessed you, encouraged you, informed you, and I will see you guys in the next video.